If I were an ingredient, I'd probably chocolate. Chocolate's a little bit temperamental. Sometimes it's very easy to work with, and sometimes it's not.
All right. What's your all-time favorite ingredient and why?
My all-time favorite ingredient would have to be probably the fruits, the dried fruits that I use. My baking company is peanut and tree nut free because of my mom's nut allergy, and they substitute a lot of the nuts, like in a lot of recipes. So I really like that product because it makes it possible for like my mom and others that have that allergy to enjoy some of like biscottis and things like that.
So, what are your top 3 original baking ingredients or decorating tips that demonstrate your baking knowledge?
I do a lot of experimenting with flavors, different types of flavor. I bring a lot of savory into desserts. I'm a firm believer that you do not have to die of a diabetic coma to enjoy a dessert. It can be, I've gone to restaurants that, I get this chocolate cake and I'm eating and I get halfway through and I'm just like, oh, it's too sweet. Mm-hmm. And also, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Sometimes your mistakes, I've made a lot of mistakes in the past, but sometimes they've become like the best recipes that I have. And also with cake decorating, I've made this mistake numerous times. I put on the frosting and I let it sit in the refrigerator, and I wouldn't let it sit long enough, and then I'd bring it back out and I'd put on my rolled out fondant on top of it and smoothed it out, and the next thing you know, there's just ripples going down the sides of my cake, and it's because the frosting is just like, the fondant's heavier, so it's just like pushing down the frosting to coming down actually literally from the sides.
But I thought you didn't put roller coasters on your cake.
I try, Barbara, I try.
Would you consider yourself competitive?
I consider myself to be very competitive. I've been competitive as a child. Like, I have a younger brother. Me and him, he's probably scarred for life from, just beating him up all the time. We used to play video games, and he used to beat me because that's, he was so much better than me. And it would just frustrate me. I hated to lose. And then also, at school, we did competitions, and I did a chocolate sculpture. And it was a Cinderella theme.
Culinary school?
Yeah, culinary school. It turned out to be really nice, and it was my first chocolate sculpture. Had some bumps, there on making it, but we went to the show, and they had it open to the public, and it was like the last day of the show, and a lady didn't believe that I made the pumpkin out of white chocolate, and I dusted it with dust. It was like orange and gold, because it was when the pumpkin was turning into the carriage.
Okay. And
she didn't believe that the pumpkin was really chocolate. And she literally, she stuck her finger through the pumpkin, and I'm like, what is she doing,
So did that destroy your pumpkin?
That completely destroyed my pumpkin. I looked at my chef instructor, and I'm just like, who would do that?
Well, that kind of comes out in competition. So let's say that you are up against other contestants. Will you be competitive in order to win the cash and prizes?
Yes, I think I'd be very competitive. I want, my goal is to win. This isn't only a great experience for me, but I want to win. Who doesn't want to win, the cash prize?
And you're not going to stick your finger in
No, I'm not going to do that.
Pumpkin, okay. Now, how do you handle stressful situations? How do you react?
Stressful situations at first, I tend to freak out a little bit, and then after a couple of minutes, I go into fix-it mode. I calm down a little bit, and then I look at and assess the situation, and I say, okay, how can I fix this? How can I make this better? I think what makes me unique is just, all of the things that have happened to us, to my family and I, when we started this business in the last year. We have had, ups and downs and a couple crashes here and there. But I've had some great opportunities. I went to the fancy food show. I have my baking mixes, Bloomingdale's. The possibilities for me are endless right now. And all this, we have accomplished in a year. The reason that I want to be on the show is not only to break through and become the next baking star and to help my business, but also because of my family. My family they are very important to me. My parents they're wonderful people. They have put everything that they have into this business to help me succeed, and they've pushed me along the way. And I want to make them proud, and I want to make this business as successful as I can make it.
Your dad also did something pretty significant to get you going too, didn't he?
Yeah, my dad actually, he sold his precious Corvette for me.
Was it a vintage one?
No, it wasn't a vintage, but I mean, he would, every weekend, every Friday, he'd be out there waxing his car. So he did, and like one of these days I hope to repay him, and maybe I'll get to buy him one, or maybe two.
Oh, that would be great. All right.